allowing yourself to hear the call. Can everybody see me? Are you okay back there? Move around if you need to. You're good. You're good. Okay. And if you need me to speak up, then just tell me. Thank you for allowing yourself to hear the call. I would say to you that you're about to have a pretty unique and remarkable experience for the next 8 weeks. 7 weeks, I guess, this plus 7. You may have been to other seminars or teachings or sharings before, but I'm not sure that will have ever been to anything like what we're about to experience. Now, let me explain why for a couple of reasons. One, it's an evolving, interactive experience that we're about to have. We call it co-creation, which means that I'm not the main event. I'm just the facilitator. I bring in information. Kevin's not the main event. He's a facilitator. He brings in other information. And each one of you bring in information. You have gifts, all of you. You have contributions to make. You may not be aware of them yet, but in the coming weeks, I'm sure that you'll tap into what that is within you. And together, because that's the key, we're all connected and there's only one of us, and we'll be explaining that over and over again as we go too, but together we're going to put the pieces of the puzzle together that will allow us to do a couple of things. One is to what we refer to as reclaim the divinity within ourselves. 2 is to access tools within ourselves that allow us to navigate the challenges and the changes that we're all going through. And 3 is to realize that we all respond to a frequency. We all, dolphins respond to a frequency, dogs respond to a frequency. We can't hear what the dolphins are doing, we can't hear what the dogs are hearing, but everyone in this room responded to a frequency. And so you are all very much connected in ways that you can't even yet imagine, but that you will begin to experience as we go through the next several weeks. So you're a very special group of people. You're all related in a very wonderful way. You have a purpose in life that if you haven't identified it yet, you will know what it is before we're done. And that in and of itself is a tremendous blessing when that occurs. So to start, what I'd like to do, just because everybody got here at different times and some people are still unwinding from having been worried that they were late or whatever, just want to take us through a brief meditation just so everybody can kind of just settle into where you are. So just get comfortable and preferably uncross your legs. You can cross at your ankles if that's comfortable, but kind of everything else. So that the circulation can move, and to the extent that you're comfortable, sit up, but don't sit up to the point where you're artificially sitting in a position that's totally uncomfortable, but you think this is a good meditative position. Don't bother with that. Dr. Kevin can address that later, I guess, at some point about that, but for now, and I'm just going to walk us through. So if you close your eyes now, and we'll go through this together. Visualize a tiny light somewhere in the distance. The light may take any form you can imagine. It could be the glowing aura of a candle, a light bulb, a flashlight, a street light, any light that enters your awareness. Begin to move toward that light. It may be clear or obscured by a misty fog that creates an aura around it. As you get closer and closer, the light becomes more significant and brilliant. Keep your mind focused on the light and feel it growing brighter as you approach nearer and nearer to it, now surrounding you entirely. Imagine that source is the center of the light. And so all of the wisdom and truth of God are also in that light, which is presently glowing intense and white. Now move into the center of the light and feel it enter your being, moving all around and through you. Feel the presence of God's love within it and realize it is your love. Feel the embrace of the essence of Source all around and through you. Now surrender to the love and become one with it. Savor the presence of God and feel the warm embrace as you connect with all the love that is. Understand it will always be with you. It is always with you. Relax, knowing that you are one with Source. Now, feel all the light that was surrounding you and flooding through you. Feel it begin to gather inside your being, as if you are a magnet pulling all that light inside, so that you become the light itself. You are a being of pure light. You contain God and the entire essence of love. Collect all the light together, allowing it to focus in the center of your heart, where it disappears from sight, but still glows with the same intensity as before. It will burn brightly there forever, as it always has, but now you will be aware of it. Begin to slowly re-enter the presence of this room, aware of the light that is forever you, and shows in your eyes as a gentle radiance, and shows in your face as a relaxed loveliness that shows everyone you come in contact with that God's presence is with and within you. And then slowly open your eyes at your own comfort level. Okay.
All right.
Just turn that down.
Yes, I'll do adjustment.
Yes, yes.
So while we're all here sitting quietly, you can have your eyes open or your eyes closed. What I'd like you to do is just simply have an awareness of your body, of yourself, of your breath. And what we're going to be doing is in alignment right now. So we are asking to receive the information we just gained. We're going to be releasing all fears, doubts, anxieties, worries, concern related to anything that was brought with you tonight. We ask that the messages that are presented here and in the future be accepted and integrated. Just put your thoughts and yourselves within. And we're placing all this energy, all this to be released in this light body here in front. Just feel the connection, feel togetherness, feel the oneness. Continue to breathe. Okay, take a nice breath, deep breath in. And bring yourself back into yourself. Your fingers, your toes, move. Now, if anyone would like to offer, did anyone have a sensation, an experience there? The moment before, the moment just after I was quiet.
When you first began?
Just right now, just a moment ago.
I had just like an experience of feeling like a connection from above to below my feet. It's like a spiral of energy going through my body.
Very good. One of my hopes is that by the end of all the classes, everyone here has some level of experience similar to Stephanie. You, as we become more aligned, more in tune, more aware of yourself, you will have more ability to feel what is in and around you, in a good way.
So there's no Q&A, there's a constant Q&A, meaning don't wait till the end of the evening. As we're doing whatever it is we do, just if you have a question or you have a comment, or if you want to share an experience that gets triggered as a result of what we're talking about, your timing is perfect. Just go ahead and share or speak up, raise your hand, however you're comfortable. Part of the co-creative effort that will take place is that periodically Kevin and I will probably have a conversation, and we'll probably have a conversation as if you're not here, meaning that I'll look at Kevin and he'll look at me, and we'll just kind of let the conversation go where it needs to go. And the reason for that and the basis for that, before I begin, because I'm going to work with the PowerPoint presentation, but before I begin, I want to give an example of something that happened between Kevin and myself recently that's probably one of the best examples I've heard or experienced in a long time of how co-creation works. You know, we all think that we have to do everything ourselves, especially A-type personalities, and I'm one of them. You have to get, you're responsible, and if I don't handle it, it isn't going to get done, and we never have enough time and hours in the day or whatever it is. And yet, it's not the way it works. It works that we're all connected, and as I like to say, we all bring a piece of the puzzle. So we all have something to bring to the other that completes the picture, or it makes it even easier, in a sense, for any of us to live our lives when we open to that. So, here's the story. I came in about 2 days ago, and I was frantic. You know, I'm not supposed to be frantic. I do these seminars, right? I was frantic. I am human. I was running around in my mind over and over was this thought about I have to move soon. And I don't know whether to make a local move or make a more long distance move. So I was over and over, and I stopped in to see Kevin, and he said, well, I said, what do you think? What do you think? Give me, feedback, energy feedback. Not that I was looking so much for his opinion as a friend. I was looking for his energetic feedback around the issue of local versus long distance moving. And he started to do a little bit of an adjustment. And
so if I can chime in, what she means by this is there's a lot of confusion going on around her mind, a lot of thoughts, and the left brain is really going. And my role and what I do as far as this energy component is simply try to release any interferences to allow the creative right brain to come to the surface, and so it helps the balance return, so the body can, so the mind can come to its own conclusion. So Cal can have her breakthrough, so to speak, and it's something that I want to use the right words. It's other than me doing it. All I'm doing is finding what's interfering with the process and releasing it.
So balance was a key word, because we're talking about everything being in balance in order for it to work properly, and left brain and right brain is a big part of how we function. Logical, rational from the left, and creative, intuitive from the right. And he was saying that I was overactive in my left, my logical brain was trying to figure it all out. So he did what he does, which is try to remove the obstacle or that which was in the way and allow myself to align more with myself. But suddenly he said, he walked into one of his adjustment rooms where he has certain words on the wall that mean something to him and nothing to me. But
so just a list of emotions, and on one side are the emotions we would prefer to avoid, and then the emotions we would love all to have all the time.
And he said the word infidelity. There's something around this in infidelity. Infidelity. First of all, I'm presently single, so infidelity. What? But so I hearkened back to my marriage, and I said, well, my ex-husband wasn't unfaithful. And he said, no, it has something to do with renting. It's the renting piece and infidelity. And I said, renting? I've only rented twice in my life, and I can't connect infidelity. And he said, no, it's not you. It's someone other than you connected to renting and infidelity. And I'm racking my brain. And I said, Kevin, doesn't feel right to me. Now, this is an important part. The important part is, just because he said it doesn't make it so. He said the word, and then he was trying to interpret what he was getting. But it's my path, and it's my issue, and it's my life. So I said, none of that feels right. I said, let's look up the word infidelity.
So we to define it.
Define
what does Webster have to say?
What does Webster exactly? What does Merriam say? So we came out, and he sits down and he types in infidelity, and as I start to read, the first thing I see is the root infidel, and I said, "Oh my gosh, it's me! I'm being an infidel. I am asking you. I'm connected to Source. I'm worried. I'm not trusting the universe. I teach trusting the universe."
What's the definition of infidel?
Non-believer.
Right.
Exactly, a non-believer. Lack of faith. And in that instant, all my worry was gone. I was so thankful to him for his work, for his piece of the puzzle. The keys there are, one, I was aware that I was running a program in myself to start. I was aware that I was, in layman's terms, making myself nuts, okay? We'll leave all spirituality. I was making myself crazy. So I was aware of that. So I sought help. But I sought it from a place where I know there's integrity in the process, okay? So that means it's someone you trust their work, whatever that is. And their work may be nothing other than they tell you the truth and you know it. So you rely on them for truth. So I reached out to another. I didn't have to do it all alone. I didn't have to be strong and not tell anybody that I was driving myself crazy and therefore act stressed to other people because I was carrying something I didn't need to be carrying. He then opened himself up to being a facilitator, to being a guide through the process, to being someone who could, as he said, alleviate the obstacle, or what's your language?
Release the interference.
Release the interference.
And just and have another look at it from a different perspective with what her body, her energy was sharing with me, based on what I had in my toolbox, so to speak.
And in his toolbox, he trusts his tools. So he got the word he went to the chart and he was directed to infidelity. So he gives me that word, and then he mistakenly tries to, he tried to interpret it, but
I still get it. There was some level of experience from somebody else that she knows.
He maintains that, yes.
I do. I keep getting it.
It's okay.
I got it right? So, there's something there. But anyway, here we are.
And then we were both fluid enough for me to say, Kevin, doesn't feel right. So I feel safe enough with him to say, no, I don't think you're on it. Or at least for me, it's not safe. It doesn't feel right.
I think that's the key. It has to be right for you.
It has to be right for you, exactly. Yeah. And then I said, okay, let's go to the third party. Let's go to the internet and look it up. And then what do I want to call this? I want to call this the courage, the self, the trust in self that I had to own the word infidel and all that it meant. Because that's a tough pill to swallow if you're in my business, right? It's like a doctor suddenly thinking that they don't know how to heal. I mean, to hear that I could be an infidel. But what it was saying was in the moment, in this instant, you're disconnected, Carol. You're not connected. If you were connected, you wouldn't be running this program. So the point of starting all of this off with this story is it's an example of how co-creation works. It's an example of what happens when we open ourselves up to the universe and trust that the answers will be forthcoming as long as we're present, aware, and open. Sometimes it comes in the form of a bumper sticker on the car in front of you. You know, it's just one of those things. You're having a problem and you're stopped at a red light and you've been stressed for 3 days and suddenly you read the bumper sticker in front of you and you almost laugh out loud in the car to yourself because you can't believe you're reading that message. It's so on point. Sometimes it's not sometimes it takes stages like it did in that instance.
I would like to share.
Please.
I come to see Dr. Kevin, and the first couple of times that he did that and shared a word with me, it was kind of shocking because I was a little afraid at first that he could read my mind because he was so right on, and I was really quiet and didn't say very much because it kind of scared me a little bit. So I had to kind of be a little bit more accepting of it, and it was my learning to trust him that it was okay and that I can really embrace those words and feel it within myself and know that I have some work to do around it.
Good.
Thank you.
So would you please give your name for every...
Sure. I'm Susie.
Susie.
Yes.
And let's do that for the first couple times we all speak because we do want to get to know one another. And I can speak only for myself. I'm name impaired. So it takes me a very long time to get names into my brain.
Because of name tags for next time.
Name tags for next time, right. For me, right. For who I am. Okay.
If I can comment real quick, just
Sure.
the other key point I took from what Carol was describing there is being aware of when you're in and when you're out of the moment. I think we're gonna get into that more later, but I just wanted to bring that up. I felt it was very important.
We are. We're going to talk about awareness. We're going to talk about awakeness, the difference between being aware and being awake. And we're going to go into that not tonight probably, but on other nights. And also this dialogue that we do periodically, I mean, none of this is scripted. There's no pre-planning here between Kevin and myself about what we'll share, but we want you to see an example of what co-creation looks like, and we have come to a point where we're able to do this with one another with a certain amount of fluidity. So hopefully you'll get to see examples of sort of how that plays out. Okay, as I begin, I want to say that you may have had preconceived notions, I don't know, about what this is about or what we're going to do or even what you want out of this. I would ask you to put them under your seat, put them in your pocketbook, in your pocket, and wherever, and kind of give it up because it'll only get in your way. And also that, and I'm most guilty of what I'm going to say, and that is I like everything instantly. You know, I want to know. Give me the answer. Get to the point. Patience is part of the process, and because you cannot build a sturdy structure on a weak foundation. And so we may begin with things that you say to well, what am I doing here? You know, she's talking about atoms and molecules and what in the, I didn't even like science whatever it is, bear with it because we're building towards something. And trust me, just trust me that it's going to take all these weeks for it to build one on top of the other. And while pieces of it, you'll leave here tonight, I'm sure, with pieces that are aha moments for you and something maybe to do during the week, but it's not the full picture, but it will come into focus as we move on. So, welcome to Awakening and Healing, Reclaiming Your Divinity.
Kevin, I don't know if I'm Karen. I don't know if I'm the only one that's hot.
Okay.
It is warm. I'm not hot, but it's warm. You warm? You took off. I assume you.
I can't take
Yeah,
any more
no,
off. Everybody leave.
No, or it's a whole different seminar. We didn't get township approval for that seminar.
Oh,
Okay.
can I say something?
Yes.
You know, I think that
Your name is?
My name, well, it depends on what day it is now. Today I'm Denise. I think that what I've gotten lately, after a journey of a few years of just absolute negativity and torture in my brain against circumstances that have happened to me, you know, with my own family and with people that you know and all that, is that that's all part of it. Mm-hmm. That's all part of getting delivered. And, you know, becoming who you are, who you need to be. In other words, I am connected to those people. They were supposed to do that to me, I think, to make me who I am. Is what I'm coming up with. And learning how to react and, prevail and be stronger. So all those people that I just want to like punch out, I guess they were supposed to be there and put in my path to see, to teach me a lesson.
There is an aspect of that. There is an aspect of that to what you've been through, and the other aspect is that you've created every one of those people and brought them to you by your own thought process, and that's what we're going to spend a great deal of time on, is how we bring these situations to ourselves and how we no longer do that.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So, as we begin with something small. The reason that we need to understand the source of all that is and how it interplays and interfaces with us is because we are of that source that all that is. And to the extent that we don't have some sort of container within our own awareness of where we place that in relationship to ourselves, we feel that we're sort of flying by the seat of our pants, and that we're here alone and there's no purpose and there's no connection. And a lot of times we go to religion as a way, and I'm a spiritual person, whatever that means, because we're going to talk about the word spiritual too. But I've been a religious person in my life. I've been a spiritual person in my life. I now call myself a righteous person, which is different than spiritual or religious, and we'll talk about what that means too as things go on. And it's not righteous in the religious sense. It's righteous in a different sense. So the reason I want to look at creation is because at the source of all that is, and actually, I think I want to go here. The smallest unit that we know of is the atom. The smallest building block.
It's almost true.
Oh, well, okay,
Almost
okay.
But go on.
Technically, I know we've split that baby.
Yes, we split that.
Yeah, we've split that baby.
But nonetheless, it's all here.
And that's the quantum level.
Right.
But in reality, that the atom is an excellent model, I'll say it this way, an excellent model for the manifestation of energy as a packet, a force, which is what an atom is. It is a force that manifests physically, because if you break down an atom, you break it down, you just find energy. Mm-hmm. You ultimately just find energy. So what we know is that the essence of everything is energy. But that energy has intelligence. And the reason it has intelligence is because what exists ultimately is simply pure thought, pure energy. That doesn't have a physical component. It's not physical matter. Physical matter is a manifestation of that intelligence that is pure energy. And the reason I say it has intelligence is because it behaves consistently in certain ways. There's nothing random about the behavior of energy when it manifests on the physical plane. So for example, if we look at this atom, on the left, you see you've got a nucleus, which is the red part. And then around it, you have these things whirling in these orbits. Thank you. And those things are electrons, okay? They are negatively charged particles. What's in the nucleus is a proton, a positively charged component, and a neutral, a neutron, which is neutral of its charge, okay? And that's an energy packet, in other words. That energy packet seeks out other energy packets. Now, Thomas Edison was fascinated with that seeking out, because what he couldn't understand was, why do certain chemicals bond? Why do certain atoms bond with other atoms to create molecules, which is what is on the upper right. On the upper right are atoms bonded to create a molecule, and what bonds each little circle, each atom, is an electromagnetic field. That's what bonds them. Why do certain ones bond to other ones? And what he concluded was that they choose. They have consciousness, but not self-consciousness. There's a difference, because consciousness is on a scale. And you can have a very low level of consciousness, like in a rock, but it's made up of atoms, just as you and I are. The rock is made up of the same thing you and I are, and those atoms are exactly the same. They are packets of energy that bonded to other packets of energy because there was some affinity or some choosing to bond with, and they chose out of some level of intelligence. Why? Because the energy that's in them that makes up an atom comes from the source of all that is, which is pure energy, which is pure thought. So if pure thought manifests energy, then energy is of the same intelligence of that which manifested it. The energy that comes out of pure intelligence, that operates according to law. And the law that it operates according to is movement and animation. Movement and animation. So you get energy from the source of all that is. If we could see pure energy, we would see nothing physical. If your brain can wrap around that, you would simply see a vibration. It's a vibration of an energy, which is why we talk about the hum, the hum of the universe, or the hum of source, because it is simply a vibration, and that vibration operates according to one law, and that's expansion. It's to constantly expand. Well, in order to know itself, in order to experience itself, it has to, in a sense, move outside of itself, if that's possible. It has to move beyond itself, because it has let me just it is not a thing. It simply is. It's not a thing. But it can only know itself in relation to what it is not. So it has to create a thing in order for it to know itself. Because it can't know itself unless it has, just like we have black and white, up and down, yes and no. We know things in relationship to other things that are opposite. So the thing that gets created is the atom. It's an energy packet. And that energy packet moves outward and away from, in essence, and at the same time must be still within, if energy is everywhere. So the paradox is it's moving out, and it has motion and it has animation, but it's also still within, because the energy is everywhere, the vibration is everywhere. It's like the field that holds everything else that's happening within it. These packets bond with other packets, and they have a certain level of energy that they bring to the moment of their combination. And when they can no longer hold that, there's sort of a jump to another form that can hold a higher convergence of energy.
So I think what Carol's trying to get at is she is essentially describing the nature of creation, and how, if you want to give it a word, how God has come to know itself. So out of this void of nothingness, of space, of all this is pure energy, the next level is self-awareness. And Carol's I think you're trying to get to is to describe how this process is of becoming, of self-knowing.
Yes, exactly, except self-awareness is not the next level. It's actually many levels up.
Of
because
course.
The rock is conscious. The amoeba is conscious.
So think of a rainbow that is going from one color to the next. That's a visible level of frequency, but there's infinite levels of frequencies that are out, think of X-ray and think of infrared, and it goes way above and beyond and below and beyond that. So Carol's talking about the rock, which is this low vibrating frequency, and then to get to where, the level that we are is so many levels, so many steps. I'm unsure how many that would be, but
it's what the term conscious evolution is about.
Right.
Conscious evolution is the evolution of consciousness toward knowing itself, And we're at a stage now where we're on the threshold of a leap. The same way those electrons, if you heat them, if you get enough energy into those electrons, you can cause them to actually jump from one orbit to another. And then when it discharges the energy it has, it will fall back to its prior orbit, but it gives off light when it jumps. It gives off light when it jumps, which is how an atom gives off light, which is how, in a way, it's how the sun gives off light. So I want you to go from the atom to the solar system. It's the same thing. The atom has a nucleus with energy orbiting around it, and it gives off energy from its core. It can deteriorate. That's another way an atom can give off light, by decaying in its nucleus, or by receiving more energy and the electron jumping to a higher level. Well, what does the solar system look like? It looks exactly like an atom. Why? Because intelligence, source, that's pure intelligence and pure energy, creates according to a law. And the law is expansion toward movement and animation towards self-knowing. So you have all these different levels. The way Kevin just spoke about a rainbow, you have within you the atom, the microcosm, but up there you have the macrocosm. The sun is like our nucleus. It's the center of our universe. The way the nucleus is the center of that atom. It's the same configuration. And when they split the atom and they split what's in that and what's in that and what's in that and what's in that, and it will go on indefinitely,
it continues to.
They will find the same configuration at all these different levels. And outside of this universe, there's another one in which this whole universe is probably a nucleus of yet some greater universe, because it goes on infinitely. But there's intelligence. This is the important part. There's intelligence in all of it. One of the reasons we know there's intelligence in it, if you've ever heard of the Fibonacci code, or it was in the Celestine Prophecy, no, in the Da Vinci Code, the Fibonacci sequence, or the golden mean, or the pi ratio, is that what it is? Psi ratio. These are all provable, mathematical, numerical, sacred geometric progressions that exist everywhere, from the inside of a pomegranate, the way the seeds are aligned when you cut open a pomegranate, all the way to the most complex systems in the universe. There is a pattern, a sequence of replication that keeps happening at the micro level, at the macro level, in flowers, in butterflies, in snowflakes, in you and me, in the ratio of this part of your finger to this part of your finger, to your finger, to your lower arm. It's all a numerical sequence that is replicated over and over in nature. They know one thing for sure. It can't happen by random. It can't happen accidentally. It would never replicate with that precision over and over and over again. So, there is an intelligence that exists in pure thought. And that pure thought creates form. The atom exists in matter. It doesn't exist in pure thought. It exists in matter. It is a creation of pure intelligence. Thought creates matter. Thought creates matter. Oh, I'm sick today. Oh, my arm hurts today. Thought affects matter. Delete, delete, by the way. I'm not sick today and my arm doesn't hurt.
Delete.
Delete, delete, right? The new word, delete, delete.
I'm fat, I get fat.
Huh?
Well, what you do is you are creating form. You are creating form. You have that power. And so, yes, you...
So let me try, if I can.
Go ahead.
There's a quote I read a couple weeks ago. This guy named Neville Goddard, a philosopher from the 1800s, and he talked about the comment of "I will" versus "I am," and this "I will" statement implies something future tense, meaning now. If I will be smart, I will be strong, implies you're weak now. If I say I am, we'll talk about this more shortly, it implies a state of being now. And so when we say that I am sick today, well, then your subconscious mind proves it to you. And this is something that the thought begins to manifest as you give it energy. I think that is a component we have to be aware of as we keep saying, keep feeling, keep reinforcing it. You're giving it more energy, more attention, more.
You're feeding it.
You're feeding the
feeding.
demon within there.
So you're just not feeding your body with this thought that you're fat. You're feeding. You're feeding. You literally. You're giving. You know, Elie Wiesel, Holocaust survivor, when asked why he wouldn't debate a Holocaust denier on Los Angeles radio, because the woman said, "But Mr. Wiesel, you were there. You were in the camps. You survived. You know it happened. Why would you not go on radio and debate him?" And Elie Wiesel said, "Because the thing I learned in the camps is you don't give evil energy. You don't feed it." So it's that. It's really being aware of your... Now imagine if what your thoughts do, once you give them word. So you don't think you're fat. You say I'm fat. You don't just think it, you give it word, and then you give it deed, because then you eat things you know you shouldn't eat. So you have so rock solid solidified the one thing you didn't want to do, which is where the expression comes from, we can never get enough of what we don't want. We can never get enough of what we don't want. It's our paradox. It's the thing we have to play with. Okay, so just as we spoke about source, pure energy, creating matter, realize that all great artists, all great musicians, all great scientists, what they've done is they've tapped into an understanding of that fundamental universal law of how things work. So if you look at the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel and you see God creating Adam, and we'll talk in a minute about Adam and Atom, A-D-A-M and A-T-O-M, there are no accidents. If you look at a moment at God creating Adam, you'll see that there's energy, right? Creating, there's pure energy, which is what God is representing, pure thought, creating the object of its thought, human, mankind, matter, through a connection, right? And those two are bonded through an electromagnetic field, the same way that atoms come together and bond through an electromagnetic field. And if you look up in the left, this particular picture is the human brain with God off the Sistine Chapel, the image of God, fit into the human brain to correspond to different portions of the human brain, that every time you have your thought, you engage all of the power of creation, and you engage all of your brain to manifest. We boring you, Magic? I would have brought treats had I known. To manifest literally whatever we bring into our world. So those people weren't there by accident. They're never there by accident. And they're there, you say they're there to learn. Well, yes. You know what they're there to learn? They're there to learn that you don't need to bring them in anymore. That's what they're really there for, because we do it until we get it right. We do it until we get it right.
This has been my journey of my personal growth, as I'm sure Carol can share. I give her permission to. And what I've recognized is life is a mirror. I don't know if we said that already tonight, but the more I look at my own thoughts, the more I look at my experiences, and the more I do this work with Carol, and I do work with myself and other chiropractors similar to myself, I recognize that every experience that I have comes about to help me have a realization of how I am, where I am interfered with, so to speak. What pattern have I created through my own thoughts, through my actions? And there's also a nurture part through experiences that when I was under the age of 7 or 10, what I'm picking up of how to be human. So there is this psychology component of mom, dad, brother, sister, aunt, uncle, people around you, and now today television, internet, and everything.
And
Yes.
that's the scary part about what it is to be human from prenatal on. These
Right.
kids are getting just this fantasy and very distorted picture of what it means to be human.
Well,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I think there's a yes to that, but there's also a no to that.
Right.
Because I guess I'll just call it a theory at this point, is technology and our experience as a society is starting to match the experience of what the universe is. You look at the internet, it's instant access now. And the way and how I understand the nervous system, there's instant access. Something hits your toe, your entire body knows immediately what's going on. Just like Cal can go check her email here or at home or anywhere else in the world, is instant access. So this is an experience that is purposeful to bring about a certain level of understanding, but also there is challenges because we have these experiences to grow from. So there's a positive way to look at it. There's also a challenging way to look at it. They both are going to be a component towards growth, if we see it that way.
As long you're starting to shake your head at what? At what you just said
I'm
about
just
the internet?
very
about
concerned
what the kids are
about children today losing what it means to be human, because everything is, plastic, computers, all this stuff going in their faces, and it's not at nature's pace. Like, that plant is not like, and this is their reality from birth on, watching these bigger and bigger and bigger screens, and people having less touch and human contact with them, and they're bypassing what they need to be human, in my opinion, as a kindergarten teacher for 36 years. I'm seeing a problem.
The
I agree.
technology can be used for good or it can be used for ill.
Double-edged sword.
And a lot of that has to do with those people who control the use of that technology. And I don't necessarily mean like government institutions. I mean you in your own
Parents.
home. Right, parents, for example. However, when we talk about, we have to realize that we're in an age of bridging. We're going through a period of bridging from one consciousness to another. And it's important to try to not judge,
To avoid judgment.
to avoid judgment in the thank you. He wants me to get rid of the word not in my speech. To avoid judgment in how we're assessing what's unfolding before us. Because it's changing so rapidly, and the potential for the next stage really rests in rooms like this. It really rests in what you are about to do in your own life with your own mind. You will be shocked by the end of the 8 weeks at the realization of the power that you hold for affecting the world. Literally. So, with that, if you'll indulge us a little longer, and this can come up again, Denise, but for now, let's just say that we've registered the concern, and we're all on it. We know what it is, and we're going to work it through in the next 7 sessions.
It was sparked by what he said about when I was a child and I was
Right.
7 and he wanted
Yeah, of course.
And that put a fear in me. Go ahead.
And there was not technology when I was young, okay? And I was as crippled in many ways emotionally as any kid who has sat with a doing this, okay? And that kid may have more arthritis than me, that doesn't have more neuroses than I had, okay? I mean, I was supposed to be a boy, and I was a disappointment from the moment I came out. And I heard that story it took me 40 years to get over the fact that I wasn't a boy. I mean, and that affected my entire life, okay? You don't need the technology to destroy a human being. There are many ways to, what?
It will happen regardless. if you let it.
In a way, as we move toward self-awareness, as we move toward who we really are, and we stop misusing the energy, because by the way, that's what righteousness means. It means the rightful use of energy. So I say that I'm a teacher of righteousness, because that's what I am doing, the rightful use of energy. It's that. Well, once we learn to do that, we won't have the obstacles in our way that we've dealt with thus far. And we're moving toward that more rapidly than you could ever imagine. We're moving toward that very rapidly. So,
I'd like to just
yes.
add on to.
Your name is?
My name is Bonnie. Hi,
Hi.
I'm sorry, what was your name?
Denise.
Denise. I was thinking, you know, as children, we all develop core beliefs from our siblings, our parents, our teachers, and that type of thing. So, I mean, you know, years later, like Carol was saying, you know, we struggle with those things, and we look at people and we interact with people. And like what Kevin was saying, I wrote a little note to myself, even before you said it, about, you know, we have a mirror. When we talk to people, we see ourselves, really, and we're having conversations with ourselves or interactions. And that's how I just look at that type of thing. So I see what you're saying about the, you know, technology, but even before that technology, children get their core beliefs when they're really young. And, you know, and then sometimes it's negative core beliefs and sometimes it's positive.
They get them in utero.
Exactly. And then, you know, years later, we'll look at, you know, I'll look at Carol and she'll trigger a core belief that I had that was a negative core belief as a child. And then I may react to her in a different, you know, different manner. It's just something that I've learned through the years.
I think my fear is that maybe people aren't taking the time to really try to instill things into kids, and it's just easier to let them whatever, and then a lot of the things they're learning is being negative. But let's turn it over to.
Well, I want to mirror something. My fear is we're gonna get rid of that because there's nothing to fear, right? Because my fear is, again, you're telling your cells
and that's
to be frightened. Telling your cells to be frightened, and they listen. You know why they listen? It's the voice of God. It's your thought, pure intelligence, giving them, feeding the nucleus, telling them, manifesting in matter, what wishes to be created.
Okay, I gotcha.
So,
go ahead.
I just want to say this is everything you're concerned with is a level of personal responsibility for the parents to have an awareness of what's going on. And this is a challenge right now because we're transitioning into this new era, this new phase where personal responsibility is going to be of the utmost importance. And as individuals have more awareness of what it is, of what their children need, of what they need, it's going to be moving into that. And right now, what we're seeing in children today, I feel, is the end result of all the way we used to think. And it's manifesting in all these challenges and experiences that kids today are having a very difficult time with.
Well, they're being torn between two worlds, almost, is what's happened. Yet many of them, don't underestimate them.
Very brilliant.
Many of them are much more advanced than you think or than appear. And they see a totally different world every day than you and I see, because they were already born with cells that were more highly evolved. They were already more highly evolved when they were born. Now they may have to be wrestling with, as you and I did in our own eras, they may have to be wrestling with the realities of the culture they're living in, and they may have that push-pull. But believe me, their sight, their inner sight, their sight of being able to cut through the
imagination,
and their imaginations are phenomenal. Okay. One thing before I go on, you said personal responsibility. It's the other side of free will. It's the other side of free will. You cannot have one without the other. You cannot have one without the other. If you choose, without personal responsibility being your guiding principle, then all you will choose for yourself is chaos. All you will choose for yourself is continuing to get things in your life that you don't want. When you accept personal responsibility for your choices, that's the proper use of free will. When you understand that there are consequences to every choice, and you are willing to own those consequences or stand up and accept those consequences because you've chosen consciously, you've been a conscious chooser in the use of your own free will, then you have a completely different experience in your life. And if we had more people taking personal responsibility, and we do have people awakening to this, when you have more people and more people taking personal responsibility, you see, you don't need, allow me for the moment, not because we have an election next week, but the only reason people think they need big government is because they don't want to take personal responsibility. No one has ever said to me that when Jesus was walking down the road and the person was laying bleeding by the side, he said, "I'll call FEMA." He stopped. It was his to do. It was in front of him. It was his to handle, okay? That's the way it works. And that's the way it works at every level, in every situation. If somebody's in front of you tomorrow, they're there for a reason. If you pass a person with a flat tire and you keep going, without just at least stopping and saying, "Do you have a cell phone? Can I make a call for you?" Everybody's in front of us for a reason. If everyone took personal responsibility, you wouldn't need government agencies. I heard the most bizarre thing today, and again, I'll get off of this in a minute, but it's such a perfect example. I heard President Obama say in his next term, if he's reelected, he's going to appoint a Secretary of Business. He's going to create a new cabinet office, a Secretary of Business. We have secretaries of every department and nothing's getting done, and now we're going to create one for business. Government's going to run business. It defies common sense. But you see, when we stop taking personal responsibility for thinking for ourselves, we hear things like that and it's just like, oh, it's another news item. But think about the absurdity of a new cabinet member to run the private sector when the post office is bankrupt. Because government can't run anything big. It just doesn't work that way, okay? So it's stuff like that, but I digress. It was just such a great example. I heard it and I said, are other people listening to the radio beside me? How can people stay on the road? It was like laughable. It was so ridiculous.
100% right, though.
Yeah, I have
I'm
heard
Dave,
that.
by the way.
What, you what?
Dave.
Dave, thank you. Thank you. I happen to love words. I love them. I love playing with words. I love moving them around because I think in words there is a great deal of guidance and information. So this word healings, we're all looking to heal, right? We all want to heal. Everybody's healing from something, emotionally, physically, psychologically, spiritually. In that word, if you move the letters around, you get he, she, alon. Healing comes from balance of the male and female, positive, negative aspects of ourselves. And so it's important to realize that you are all of that. You are left brain, right brain, and when you are not well, you are out of balance. You are out of balance. Now, I'll take it back one step from Kevin's degree, which is in chiropractic. Your thoughts are out of balance. That's why your form is out of balance. Would you agree
Absolutely.
with that? And that's part of what you do as well.
Well, as far as chiropractic goes, and next week we'll have it ready, but there's a list of 33 principles, and 4 of them are chiropractic. The rest are universal law, essentially. And so this experience of thought, chiropractic uses this term called subluxation. I want you to understand interference means subluxation. So some level of interference. And the founder identified 3 main causes. Trauma, so physical. There's chemicals, so nutrition and toxins and pollution. And then there's thoughts. So we can have a way of thinking about something that may be out of congruency with reality. And when that is out of being congruent, then there is something that manifests within ourselves that brings about sickness, disease, or infirmity.
It's always going to come back to thought. It's always going to come back to thought. Ultimately.
I'm not sure. I'm unsure if I read this or if I've been blessed with this thought, but I had this quote I love to say is everything was created twice, but I've since changed that to I think everything's been created 4 times. So for us to have this workshop series, we had an idea, but this idea came from someplace else. So I like to use the analogy of a house. The house is the physical manifestation. There's a blueprint that it was built off of, and then someone had to think about that blueprint, but that individual got inspiration from someplace. So that's the 4 layers.
Yeah, everything's an idea.
Everything is an idea. Everything starts from that. But it came from pure energy, pure source. You've heard of the 100th monkey?
Sure.
Okay, so there's this example called the 100th monkey, I don't know, syndrome or whatever it is. But Theory, thank you. There's an island with all these monkeys, and they started to, some of the younger ones started to use, rocks to break open coconuts or some other hard to open piece of food, and they started teaching the older monkeys.
Well, the older monkeys saw them and they started to
emulate them, and so by a certain level of them, about 100 or so, they all started doing it. And what scientists recognized was that monkeys on other islands started imitating the same thing.
Within no time.
So this is this field of knowledge and energy constantly going around. The name doesn't escape me at the moment, but it will come.
Oh.
The field of energy thought that as...
The morphic field.
Yeah, the morphogenic field. So as this information starts becoming more and more prevalent in the morphogenic field, now suddenly monkeys that were unborn now just simply know it.
Because there's only one mind.
All right.
There's only one mind. It's, I say AM and FM, right? You can drive in your car all day and listen to AM music and bemoan why you can't hear an FM song. Well, the reason is you're not tuned in. You cannot hear FM unless you tune into the frequency. Everything in the universe vibrates at a frequency. Everything. It has consciousness because it is made up of atoms. It's just very dense. It's very dense, okay? So unless you know how to tune in, you're never going to hear. There's a million frequencies. There's only one source of all that energy. There's one vibration from which all of those vibrations emanate, and it's the source of all that is. There's only one mind. You are an aspect of that mind. You are actually an animated idea in the mind of God, in the mind of Source. That's what you are. You're an animation. You're movement and you're animated. That's what you are. And so everything is an idea. What happens is we think, I can't do that. I can't do that, whatever that is. And therefore we limit our access to the morphogenic field, to the one mind. In reality, a Steve Jobs or a Bill Gates or a Leonardo da Vinci or a Beethoven, all they were was open to the morphogenic field. So everything was possible. Beethoven's frequency was music. Bill Gates's was technology. They were just open to every possibility, and so they knew that if they thought it, they could form it, which is the way it works. If you think it, Field of Dreams, the movie with Kevin Costner, if you build it, they will come. It really works that way. It really works that way. But we have something that we call evil, that we call Satan, which is simply doubt. That's all it is. Doubt. Evil is doubt. The minute you doubt, you disconnect from all that is. And what happens, so here's what happens. People, they paid for the secret, the CD, the program, they paid for it, they took the course, they watched the DVD, and then they got up the next morning and they said, I'm going to be a millionaire because I'm thinking that I'm going to be a millionaire. Well, you're good till you have the first thought, I'm never going to be a millionaire.
Done.
Or what are the odds? You canceled out everything you thought up to that moment. Evil, Satan is doubt. It's disconnect from source. Religiously, spiritually, we get taught all these lessons. It's an apple, it's a woman, it's all these things, right? You're born in sin, you're bad, all this stuff. It's a disconnect. You know what? If I pull the plug out of that salt lamp out of the wall, I can wish for it all I want. It isn't going to light up because the source of energy, it has to be plugged in. You have to be plugged in.
There's an action step. Yes, Greg.
Hi, I'm Greg. I am just so very blown away with of the things we're talking about and hearing. And I think at this point, I've been thinking about this thing about when you brought up Christ and you brought up Satan. And creation and thought and matter. I am just also so aware of how important both of them are. You know, Satan is as important as Christ in that sense because they represent opposites of the same coin. They also represent how we talked about kids. You know, kids are wonderful in the sense that what I know, my grandparents didn't know. What my kids know, what my grandkids know, they know more than I know. Their reality is different.
Right.
But this idea of choice, how often and how solid are we on choosing to stay connected? We can disconnect, as you're saying. That's a choice. Or we can stay connected, which is also a choice. And I think that becomes the battle, if there is a battle, and that might be the right word, but that becomes the growth point of choosing to stay connected and the consequences of that, or disconnecting ourselves and the consequences of that. We're experiencing those choices and those consequences, and maybe we're learning. You know, maybe we're passing that learning on, like the 100 monkeys.
Right.
You know? And I think we are. I think that I've learned a lot through my forebears, and that knowledge has been passed on and through me to my grandchildren. But it is a matter of recognizing that both of them being connected and disconnected is essentially the choice of what, you know. Sometimes we'll stay connected, sometimes we won't. But we'll always experience the consequence of whatever that choice that we make is.
But Greg, what most people in the past, and less now because we're awakening and we're becoming aware and then awake, most people suffer that consequence of disconnect and don't take personal responsibility for having caused that consequence.
In the evolution and history of man, that whole idea of taking the consequence, it's amazing how often the consequence has over time, over our history, hasn't even been presented. You know, to we talked briefly about women, and the concept of what a woman was over history is amazing. You know, that I don't know if anybody saw the movie Hysteria, but Hysteria, you know, it's just, Hysteria is interesting because Hysteria is a
Greg, let me interrupt you there because I know where that story is going. I think what you're trying to get at is that there is there's a choice. Choice was, I think, the key component here, and there is a individual process and there's a societal process. And what you're talking about, either side of the coin, meaning we get to have an individual vision of where we want to be in our lives. And how we get there, it means all the difference in the world. Meaning there's ways to go about things in a moral, value-driven based method. And then there's also ways to go about it in opposite ways.
and I think what I'm saying too is there's always been a morphic field. You know, that's out there. And to the degree that we reveal that morphic field, it's not revealed as the totality of all that's there.
Right.
But it's revealed in little tiny increments of what we can what we can deal with.
Right, and it's a progressive scale. So
Right.
as we undergo a personal awareness, number one, and then a personal responsibility, and then we start to see where we want to be, then we start to be privy to more and more bits of that morphic field. So we start to make different choices and different actions to further ourselves, and then new experiences come away. Different people come away to help us experience lessons for growth, or we get to have the choice of, that was too hard, I'm going to go regress. And so that is the challenge.
I think there's points when many aspects of the morphic field is yet to be revealed to us, but we very seldom go backwards.
Because movement and animation forward is the universal principle.
So there's this leading
Exactly.
edge driving all of society, and it's that the people who buy the iPhone the first day it comes out. Well, there's people that are into the personal development, personal awareness, and the things that are on board with self-discovery and actualization and aligning with source, and then that starts to resonate out to other people in their circles, and then that continues to resonate out because it's a higher good. It's a well, for lack of a better term, a better feel.
Yeah.
And I know someone who moved to Fairfield, Iowa, to the Transcendental Meditation Center there, and he's an artist from Boston, and he gave up everything and he moved there, and he meditates 6 hours a day in the dome, they call it. They always have a critical number of people, I think it's 1,100, meditating in 6-hour shifts,
Wow.
24 hours a day for world peace. Now, that's yet another that's a leading edge we don't even hear about, right? And yet they may be bringing this along. Just the way we're bringing something along that's just, I like to say we're all on the plane. We're all on the plane. Some of us are sitting in row 6, first class. Some of us are sitting in 34 and the engine's really loud and the food's bad. But we're all on the plane. And when the plane lands, we're all going to get to the same place and we're all going to see the same thing. So important not to judge where someone is. I'm ahead of that one. This one knows more than me. No. We're all on the plane. And the important thing is to take responsibility for the seat you're in and the row you're in, and deal with the people that are sitting immediately on your left and your right, in front and behind you, and not concern yourself with who's in row 6 or who's in row 34. I mean, who's in front of you and who's behind, way in front of you or way behind you, because we're all on the plane. There's only one of us. There's only one of us. You are me. I am you. The form may be different, but the consciousness is not. The consciousness is the same. The form will end. The consciousness will not. So there's only one of us. We're like apples on a tree. I mean, there's a center. There's a core, and then, no pun intended with an apple. There's a core. There's a core portion of the tree, and then there's the flowering, and then there's all the fruit. Well, we're all the fruit, but we're all connected. We're all connected to a single source. And that's what we forget, because we're under the illusion that we're separate. Why? Because you see space between us and we look different. So we think we're separate. We're not separate. We're the same. There are cells that make up in your body. There are cells that make up your kidney, and cells that make up your heart, and cells that make up your brain. And they're different cells, okay? But they all have to work in tandem and at optimal productivity for you to run right, for me to run right, okay? Well, we're cells in a bigger body. Maybe it's the body of Earth. And so for Earth to operate properly, we have to operate at our maximum productivity and the way we were designed to operate. And maybe Earth is a cell in a larger body. Maybe Jupiter's a cell, Earth is a cell. Because remember, no matter how far out you go, no matter how far in you go, it's all the same thing. It's all the same system. It's just operating at different levels, at different rates of speed. Yeah,
Absolutely.
and in different containers.
So one of the things I love YouTube. I love YouTube. I learn so many things. So one of the things I'm fascinated with is well, the internal of the human body and how it functions and all the relationships of everything. But also I'm interested in the stars and space, and I grew up on Star Wars when I was a kid. So on YouTube you can go see a scale of what a cell looks like compared to a planetary system, and all these videos take you from the smallest object ever discovered to the largest, and the ratio of sizes is so amazing. You can fit how many millions of planet Earths inside our solar system, and you can fit millions of our solar system inside these other universal systems, and just it's so mind-boggling how big it really is. And then the same pattern is true on the inside. It continues to get smaller and smaller. I just remember an analogy someone shared with me, where if you take a ping pong ball and put it in the middle of, say, Eagles, the link in the middle of Eagle Stadium there, the center of the ping pong ball is about the size of the nucleus of an atom, and the outside of the stadium is the cell wall, is the outside of the cell wall, and that's such a huge space. So when we look at this, is one of the first realizations that really hit home for me, is that I'm more emptiness, or apparent emptiness, than actual physical matter.
Which leads me to nothingness is really just no thingness.
Physical matter.
No thingness, right. Right. Everything comes out of no thingness, meaning things only exist in the physical world. That's in the physical world of matter is where these things, like atoms, were created, exist. What we are so perplexed by is this concept of no thingness. Now, the reason that we're so I'm going to jump ahead. I don't want to jump ahead. Let me go back here. Let me leave that for a moment and just finish up with this. Yeah, stay on track, because there's just so much, and I get impatient too. Adam and Eve. He didn't sleep with her. He didn't have sex with her. He didn't have intercourse. It doesn't say any of that. It says he knew her in the Aramaic and then in the Hebrew. Adam knew Eve. What does that mean, he knew her? It means two things. One, you don't know anything till you experience it. You can only believe it or not believe it till you experience it. Once you experience it, you have certainty and you know for yourself. So no matter what I tell you here, you can either believe me or not believe me, but you can't know unless you had your own experience that gives you certainty in the knowing, okay? So why does it say Adam knew Eve? Well, he knew her because he was one with her. One with her means he joined in consciousness with her. He became one with her. He understood, she understood, they were one. They were one. It says she was created, from his rib? They came from the same source. And when they joined back together and knew one another, they understood that recognition of that same source. Now later on, we're going to talk about why in particular, if they knew source, where did they hide when they were, caught doing what they weren't supposed to be doing. We'll get to that on another night. But for now, knowing is joining with another. So if I don't know you, it's because I'm not opening myself to you. I'm not allowing myself to know you, because I am you and you are me. So who is it that I really don't want to know? It's me that I don't want to know if I don't want to know you, okay? If I tell myself that you're cold and you're distant and you're unfriendly, okay? Thought, there's only one mind. So the source of all that is telling me, an aspect of source, that I am all of those things, and then I'm really talking about myself. What is that? What are we doing? It's whatever you said it earlier. Didn't you say it earlier about you said about what I see in someone else. Maybe I see an aspect or a core belief and then it comes back to me. There's only one of us. It's why judgment is so deadly. It's why all the masters, the great masters, said, don't judge. Don't judge, because what you judge comes back upon you because you're judging yourself to begin with anyway. And all you're doing is creating more distance, more separation where there is none. Judgment is what creates separation. Oh, they're not as wealthy as me, they're not as smart as me, they don't live in the neighborhood I live in. All these reasons why we separate ourselves from other people, they're all just to feed one thing, the ego. The ego, which is a whole night in and of itself. Okay, seriously, we're going to do it. It's all to feed one tool, and that's the ego. So we'll get to that. When you know someone, that's when you can heal. When you open yourself up to another, you can heal person to person. That's how distance healing works. That's how miracles happen. It's opening your heart to another and allowing the morphic field to flow through your heart to the heart of the other. And then that energy, that light energy, and we're going to talk about light and darkness, that light energy has intelligence because it's light, and everything has intelligence, particularly light. It enters the body and it goes where it's needed. Goes where it's needed. So you don't ever try to heal someone's, broken arm or, their diseased liver. Just put light into their body and allow the light to go where it needs to go, because light has intelligence and it will go where it's needed, because the soul universal law is for intelligent movement, animation, and expansion. That's all it wants to do. That's all energy wants to do. Is help you heal and help you grow and help you be better than you are and to know yourself more. Because ultimately, the more you know yourself, the more it knows itself. And that's all it's seeking to do, is know itself through you.
And speaking of healing, there is we're getting close.
No,
so
I want to.
It is a progression. It is a progression, and Carol and I will share. That's where we've been going so far. Carol and I will share some of our experiences with healing, and the more someone is connected along this level, the easier it is to heal. When there's certain challenges, certain restrictions, certain interferences, that's when someone comes in here and has this wonderful, miraculous experience in a few visits,
or one visit before they get home. In my case,
right.
Or two for Greg this week. What?
Greg, if I can share briefly, Greg said to me tonight, and I was just running around, and he goes, Greg has some challenges, and he goes, I have had no pain. Today? Yesterday?
Well, I noticed it today. I mean, it was odd because I noticed it when I woke up, and then as the day progressed to the point where we're now at the end, let's say, of the day.
Right.
And I realized I've been without pain all day.
And I met Greg at another seminar, and it was, yes, absolutely.
Super.
I knew I had an inkling Greg would do really well with what I do because we met at one of those other woo-woo seminars, and
I call it Ooga Booga.
Yeah, sure.
He calls it woo-woo.
And it's his place where he is in his mind, with what he knows the potential of what really can happen. And I'm going to parlay this into our exercise.
Before you do that, can I just interject one thing? Because a slide started to come up, and I clicked it back because we're not going to get to it this week. And it was about darkness. But I want to make a point about polarities, about light and dark, about God and Satan. It's just energy. It's just negative and positive energy. One isn't bad, one isn't good. It's just the necessary polarities of existence. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. But as Greg said earlier, way back when our consciousness was not nearly as self-aware as it is now, and we weren't as close to knowing our own divinity, we saw it in a very narrow sense. So when, there was lightning in the sky and I was a cave woman, it was the demon. It was whatever. It was something horrible. Now I know what electricity is, and I know what a lightning storm is, and I know where it comes from. I don't have those. I'm not a cave person anymore. I have more intelligence, more awareness. That's judgment. No, there's not this good and this evil. There's the misuse of energy. I'm not a moral relativist. This is very important. I'm not a moral relativist. I'm not someone who will say nothing's ever wrong. Then someone would say, well, if there's no good and there's no bad, then nothing's ever wrong and murder's okay. No, the rightful use of energy, which is toward growth, life, expansion, more awareness. That's why do unto another. Probably the best law to live by is if you can do anything you want, just don't harm yourself or anyone else. It's very simple. So when we talk about, people say, I'm afraid of the dark, or I walk at night. I love the dark. I walk at night, always, always. The later the better. Why? The stars, the sun. And guess what? It's light at night. That's what the moon is for. There's always light. There's always light. So this concept that we have of these polarities, we've made them bad or good. We've made them right or wrong. It's only the misuse of energy that doesn't support life as it's intended, that doesn't act intelligently. Okay.
Right. So, what she's referring to is a thought societal subluxation of what reality really is. And that's what, hopefully part of this exercise we're going to share with you will help you get towards this whole energy of dark and light is a requirement for existence.
Absolutely.
It's the spin that we put on it because of our ego.
Right, our ego, right, the fear that's generated by the ego.
And it's because of a lack of knowing. And so with new knowledge, new awareness becomes new paradigms, or new ways of thinking, which changes the way we act and function as a unit, as a society.
And all a paradigm is a container. So when we talk about a new, because look up paradigm, it's a container. When we talk about a new paradigm, we're talking about a larger container, because our consciousness is expanding. So when you hear the expression, we're living through there's a new paradigm, all it means is, great. We need to enlarge the house because there's too many kids now. We need a bigger container because we know so much, and that's a good thing. It's not so mystical or hard to grasp.
So it's going to continue to expand as we continue to learn more and more. Now, we talked a lot about thoughts tonight.
Thank you.
So I'm going to pass it in a row. So this is an exercise called the monkey mind exercise. I will not. I cannot take credit. Make sure everyone has enough. Pass them around if we need more. So this is something that I was taught by something I learned in a postgraduate degree, and it was about understanding our own thoughts. Pass it back. You got that? All right, we got plenty. And just hand it to me afterwards when we're done. So part of this exercise is has not been new in many years. So it's about understanding our ego, understanding the thoughts that are, the devil, that angel on the shoulder, however you want to look at it. It's that voice running all the time, or maybe multiple voices running all the time. So number one, it's about awareness. And the first part of the exercise, part one here, is about simply identifying having awareness. So step one, you take that piece of paper and a pen, you keep it with you all day. Because at the end of the day, are you remembering what you thought about for 2 seconds at 9:45 this morning? No. But it's that when you're driving the car, that comment you say to yourself, or that person next to you on the road, oh, that person looks, fat, nasty slob over there, look at that. And it's that negative comment that starts and it continues to build and build. So we want to identify the thoughts we're having about ourselves and about others in our experiences. And so, the word "not" really giving me a hint, but you will not get it all the first day. Okay?
You're unlikely to succeed
thank you, Carol.
at getting it all in the first. I'm getting better. You're teaching me.
Great, you're helping me out. So the idea, you'll get the easy ones first, and that's a great way to start. So you simply just start to write down those comments. Okay, so that's step 2. You write them down. At the end of that day, you get a journal, get a notebook, anything that you have that you can have a consistent location. Okay, and you write down that phrase that you had. Maybe leave a little extra space below it, and then now attempt to reword it using only positive phrases. So I included some examples. That was done with me. So interchange that with, I could have been smarter about that, or I could have thought through more on that. Okay, and the other example is, he looks disgusting in that sweaty shirt. Well, he could be more mindful of how he dresses. However, have fun with it. I have fun with it now. Before it was challenging. I beat myself up a lot, and that was my old way of being. And now I have an upgraded way of doing things. So what you simply want to do is now start to add that new language to your repertoire. You're going to catch yourself saying the old program. So delete, 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 or cancel, cancel, cancel.
I say delete when I catch myself. If I realize I've said something, I'm running a negative thing in my head. The minute I realize what I'm doing, I go delete, because why not? I mean, it's like a computer, right? So delete, and then I move on.
Our brains work exactly like a computer. We can input new information, upgrade to version U 2.0. Okay?
Yeah, this whole course is an upgrade, trust me.
Absolutely, and it takes consistent effort, and you want to have a vision of why you're doing it. I mean, why? I know I did it because I want to be 90 years old at my birthday party, telling great stories, having great adventures, wonderful people around me, and doing all these wonderful things. And dancing and maybe cursing a little bit, who knows?
And I do it to get out of my own way.
Right.
Because the only thing that ever stops me is I get in my own way.
Well, yes, and that's where I started, my why. But my why has turned into, I'm here to serve humanity, to bring about the greatest good for all concerned. And I like that phrase you put it.
The highest good. Yeah.
And as I continue to move into this position, this mission, so to speak, I have greater ability. I have greater happiness and peace within myself and greater success in life because I'm doing it for the universe. I'm doing it for others. And that brings about a reward. And there's the balance between wanting the reward versus wanting to help others. But you begin to mature, and that brings about new experiences and challenges for you to learn and grow.
And then you realize anyway that the reward is the service.
The reward is the service.
The reward is the service
That's great.
anyway, and that's, yeah.
Yes, please.
I want to share a quick technique that I learned. It was called, my name's Catherine. It's called CPR. So the C is to cancel the negative, and I love the P because I used to beat myself up. The P is to pardon yourself. So you go, I'm so sorry, self. And then the R is to reprogram. What I meant to say was.
Okay.
Very good. Forgiveness, because we're going to do a whole thing on forgiveness. So thank you, Catherine, because that part is very important.
If you could, email that to Carol or I,
Oh, okay.
and we can share that.
Sure.
I think that's a wonderful thing. I think I've heard you say it before. Thank you for reminding me. CPR is great. So there's a comment here at the bottom. You can read that when you, excuse me, in the middle it says comment. But it's going to be a challenge. And you'll get the easy ones, and then the more difficult ones will come up in your experience.
Linda, my name is Linda. Just for your information, I do the animal communications.
Yeah.
Animals don't have negative words. They do not. They tell you, they teach you, don't ever use no with an animal. Like if you don't want a dog to jump, don't say stop. You don't say don't jump because they don't understand
They
don't.
jump.
They turn it,
Right.
yes, then they jump.
So
And it's just interesting, I think, that animals have no negative words in their language. And
Right.
we're learning not to use them.
Right.
Can I share that my father he didn't get past high school, but he had 6 brothers and sisters that were younger than he, and their father, my grandfather, had abandoned them. So he raised his 6 brothers and sisters and put them all through college, but he only got through high school. My father was the most successful of all his brothers and sisters. He died a multimillionaire, and every dictionary in my home growing up had the word can't, cannot crossed out in it. He every time there was a book and he found the word can't or cannot, he used a marker and crossed them out. And that was his. He had positive thought down to a science before it was a science. Bless you on the truth, right? Really, that's how it works. That really, from a non-educated, basically, person.
And what this is really about, as far as the physical part of our experience, is becoming congruent with reality, becoming congruent with source, in that and that the language that we use has so much vibration, so much tone to it that we begin to align with that and mirror that. These phrases of avoiding don't, can't, won't is a very important step, and it's a game I love to play with myself, and it forces you to become creative with your words
and present. It brings you
Present.
very present, which changes your whole life anyway. Just the more present you get, so it's a great technique for that too.
So that's part one. I highly recommend and encourage everyone to participate and have fun with it. I mean, I used to be so serious. Have some fun. It makes it a lot better.
I'm thinking they should wait for part two.
Okay, part two.
I'm thinking part one is like a week's work,
Okay.
a week's worth of work.
So fold my paper.
Please.
I'm just thinking about this in relationship to my little grandson, who's 2.5. And I have to say that when I'm with him, I'm pretty positive and upbeat, and I do try to put things in the positive, whereas the parents might be saying, don't do this, don't do that. No, I'll say stuff like, oh, you're being so careful going up the stairs, instead of don't, blah, blah, blah.
But what did you do with your children?
All the don'ts.
All the
All the
don'ts.
no's, all the don'ts.
Right.
Exactly. But I do see a difference, and if I say something once in a while again, like, it's almost like, I'll say like, don't you eat that when I want him to eat it. And then he will eat it, because it's that whole thing about doing
Yeah.
something positive, expanding, like he wants to,
Right.
do you know what I'm saying? So
Absolutely.
I'm going to really keep this in mind with him and try to
Absolutely.
use positive terms.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. You'll see him change with you versus with his parents.
Yes.
Yes.
That's
And-
just normal for parents to do that, right?
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, because it's an easier way.
Right.
I want to just make a suggestion because I think we're there, are
Yep,
we
we're
not?
there,
A couple of things. One, we're going to be giving you handouts every week,
So I
different
need to take
things.
notes.
Well, no, I would take notes if you want, but
Yeah.
I mean, I would get a folder or get something to keep this stuff in, because you're going to want it going forward when we're done. They're great reference. A lot of this will be great reference material. The other thing is, normally when people buy my book, you get one of these with the book, but I want everyone here to have one. These say Fearless Change on them. They're wristbands, and on the back is, just pass it back. On the back is my website. That's not the point. The point is Fearless Change. A little marketing tool never hurt, but so I want everyone from the course to wear it and own it and really know that that's where you're headed. You're headed into fearless change. One more. Yeah. And also, Kevin, do you want to share about if they want to take with them for next week anyone they know who might be interested?
Oh,
as a result
yes.
of tonight.
Yes. Okay, so obviously, tonight was a lot of information over here. A lot of information. Who learned something tonight that was unique? All right, great. You think other people that you may know could be interested? All right, so I want everyone to take 5 or 6 of these. We have enough for everyone, I believe. And
I still actually have mine. Some of mine.
Okay.
It's all going to be on CD in the end. So if someone missed tonight, or you can say to them, "You're going to have it all," and when we pick up next week, they won't go in the deep end. They'll be able to pick it up if they start next week. There's a benefit to you.
Right, go ahead. Please describe the benefit.
There's a benefit to you. If you bring in, if you come back, if 3 people as a result, let me back up 1 second. Yes, we would like more people. Yes, it's great to have more people sign up. The real push is to reach out and give as many people the opportunity who are ready to hear the call to be here. Because the more we are in number, the more power we have as a unit, and the more people we bring into this mindset and this like-mindedness. So this frequency that we're operating at. So if you know people who maybe before tonight you didn't even think about it, and now you came and you said, "This is interesting stuff," and so and so might want to hear this, or it might be helpful to a son, a cousin, a friend, a neighbor, a colleague, whatever. If 3 people sign up because of you, then I do private sessions. I do readings. I do spiritual readings. So I read cards, but I also do spiritual counseling. So if you sign up 3 people, you get a free half-hour session with me. And if you sign up 5 people, you get an hour free session with me. You can choose not to do that, and you can give that time away to them by giving each person 10 minutes of a private session of their own. That's totally up to you, how you handle it. But the option is yours to have a private session with me. That normally costs $150, so just so you know.
If I could make a comment real quick. I met Cal came in, I love talking the story.
Right.
Cal came in as a referral from another person, and I was supposed to be the doctor that day. I mean, he maybe said 4 words to me. I'm crying in the room for 10 minutes. And so from that moment on, I knew there's something her and I had to do together. And it has been such a growth journey for me, spending the time that we've had together. And I'm very grateful. So if this is an opportunity that you think you know some people that would be benefiting, because I know we could assist them in some manner, I highly recommend any time you can take with Carol. It's been a wonderful journey for me.
The last thing is vote. I don't care who you vote for, but vote, because it's a privilege, it's a right, it's really an amazing, we may live in an imperfect country, but we live in one of the most remarkable societies that have ever existed on the face of the earth. Trust me, I went to Russia when I was in my 20s, and I remember that when I left Russia, I was supposed to go to Germany, and I said, I've seen enough communism to last me a lifetime, I'll pass on Germany, and I went on to Copenhagen instead. But I remember that when I came home from Russia, the phone was broken in my home. There were no cell phones, it was a landline, and Bell Telephone, who it was at the time, sent out a repairman. And he was an African-American young man, and he came into my home, and I happened to be running through all the slides of Russia that I had taken. I was organizing my slides, and I was commenting. I was doing, because I was going to do a presentation for a school. And so he was fixing my phone, but I saw him, he kept looking at me, and finally, he said, "Where were you? That was awful." And I said, "I just got back from Russia." And I said, on the worst day in this country, when we think we are oppressed or poor, or whatever it is we think we are, we can go out on any street corner and stand and scream at the top of our lungs that it all sucks, or it's all horrible, or it's all evil, whatever we want to yell, and it's perfectly okay. And nowhere, there are so many places in the world where that just still does not exist. So vote. And who do you vote for? You vote from your core to their core. Forget the news, forget the statistics, forget all of that. You go into your core and you say to yourself the following question: which individual is attached to their core? Which individual is living their core? And that's how you vote, because there's nothing but misinformation out there now. That's it. That's it. So don't look outside yourself on who to pull that lever for. Go inside yourself, and you'll get the answer that's right for you.
Real quick.
Yes.
I just want everybody to
Your
know.
name is?
Shirley.
Hi, Shirley.
I met Carol probably about 9 months ago, right, Karen?
Yeah.
I met her at a Circle of 10 meeting that we had. And I carry, I don't have it with me, but I carry, I took it out.
It's in the car.
But I carry Carol's book with me. She gave me, I got her book that night. And probably about a week ago or 2 weeks ago,
I think.
I contacted Carol. And I had a private session with her. And it was on a Thursday. I think it was a Thursday. And I knew I was connected to her, but I was like, there was just something that I couldn't bring to my center. And so I had a session with her, and she told me something. You told me about a girlfriend of mine.
I don't always remember, Shirley.
Right. And you told me she wasn't going, and you named her perfectly. You called out her name, and you said it was my aunt. You said her name was coming up, Sissy or Cecilia. But it was my girlfriend that I haven't seen in almost 2 years. We was best friends. The friendship was sour. You told me that she wasn't doing good and that she would be contacting me, or I will see her or whatever. I saw her that Monday, and she wasn't doing good. and now we are close.
Mm.
So I just wanted to share that as
Thank
far
you.
as what Carol did for me. Yeah,
Thank you. And thank you also for helping her, because I know you are.
yes.
It's wonderful.
Okay, so hopefully you had a good time.
That's great. That was healing.
And thank you, Shirley. And take all of it with you and let it cook. We just plant seeds. That's all we do. We plant seeds and just water them during the week. And we'll see you back here again, hopefully with some newcomers that will join us next week, 7 o'clock. Namaste. It means the divinity in me honors the divinity in you.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste.